Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jay Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are excited to have Jim Bishop, the founder of Conjunction Leadership. Jim brings a rich mix of experience from his agricultural roots at Bishop Farms, his education at Purdue University, and his leadership roles that earned him accolades like the Elanco Performance Guild Award. Now, as the head of Conjunction Leadership, he's helping leaders navigate today's complex world with innovative models like the AND mindset and disrupt, bridge, and grow. He's here to share how he's transforming leadership development. We'll be exploring his founding story, how his business empowers leaders in a wide environment, and his vision for scaling this mission-driven venture. So let's dive right in. Jim, welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, Jim, would love to start at the top. For our listeners, take us back to the beginning. What specific problem in the leadership development or career landscape really inspired you to start Conjunction Leadership?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so 25 plus years in corporate America, I had the chance to journey beside a lot of fascinating leaders. And some leaders would what I would call flame up and some would flame out. And I had a chance to be first level seat to see what was happening behind the scenes to watch that happen. I also, in our leadership development space in corporate America, a lot of times we would put people in classroom situations and hope that would ignite the fire that would help them burn upwards. And a lot of times what we would see is they'd come back from those experiences that we carefully curated only to find that their boss hadn't changed or the system around them hadn't changed. And then they would succumb to their existing behaviors. So nothing really changed at that point. So the problem that I saw was that we needed to help leaders come to a more authentic way of leading rather than the artificial standards that people were putting around them or the competency models that they were being evaluated against. And we needed to help them personalize that on an individual level to say, what does that mean to me? And how do I want to authentically bring myself to the problems of the world and then the problems of my job?
Amazing. Amazing. So with that being said, walk us through how Conjunction Leadership's offer has evolved thus far. So from what you're providing to who you're serving, how's that changed since you first started?
Absolutely. When we first launched, I launched partly because of the background that I had and the clients I was in the middle of the pandemic. The Great Resignation was just getting ready to happen. A lot of people were itchy and starting to move places because the virtual world now allowed them to. And a lot of them wanted to take me along with them from an internal client to an external client and launch the business. And my offering was very elite and very premier at that time, kind of concierge level services. So a link to my calendar and they could schedule whenever they wanted, however they wanted. And we journeyed through this thing of disruption together. Over time, I got a lot of calls from people who also wanted to work in that space, referrals, our places, our teams that I hadn't met yet. And what that meant was my calendar was already pretty full and I needed to allow it to have the white space for those elite customers to be able to be there. But yet I felt the call to continue to reach more people and help more, find more authenticity in their own journey of leadership. So the first level on that was to write a book. The book just came out in February of this year, helping people read some of the stories of other people and coaching journeys and what they were able to. So the goal really is to help them inspire to start taking that change. From there, we launched some cohort group experiences that people can join, both free and paid, so that they in community can get the level of service that they want. And it just allows me to scale it a little bit easier. And then that adds another tier of services beyond what the elite level can also achieve. So I still have the one-on-one, I have the one-on-many now, and I have some free book clubs that people can join that get some help and experiences. And now we're starting to help more teams and organizational work as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Just a full-fledged system that you got going on here. I absolutely love that. What can you point to a certain misconception, Jim, that you often hear about the leadership coaching industry, especially around its value to leaders or scalability as a business? What's something there that you could address for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly in the space of coaching, there's a mindset that in sports coaching is probably the closest thing that most people have had an experience with somewhere along the way. And a lot of that model is built around helping someone run enough drills that they gain competence or mastery in this thing that you're asking them to learn. And a lot of times, unfortunately, in that sports coaching place, if that mastery isn't achieved, there's a level of shame that's induced as well. Running more drills, extra practice, some punitive extra, or in the worst case scenario, some shaming publicly by the coach, even getting benched. And I think that brings itself into this executive coaching or leadership coaching space. A lot of people come and they think, if I have to have a coach, I must not be very good, or I must not be able to help myself. And I like to look at it in terms of, if we were going to carry on the sports analogy, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, whoever it was, they always had multiple coaches around them at the best of their game. So nutrition coaches, fitness coaches, mental health coaches, probably even sports psychology coaches, probably some financial coaches along the way as well. So they knew enough to know that if I'm going to stay at the top of my game, I'm going to have to bring a coach along with me. And that's really the ideal client. The one that I journey with the most is not those that are saying I'm trying to cover up a problem, but those that are trying to say the world around me is moving so quickly. I'm a high achiever. I always want more in my life. If I want more in my life, I'm going to have to constantly up level my game. And so they're always reaching for more.
Absolutely love that. With that being said, obviously, so many of our listeners are right in that realm for you, right? A lot of founders, entrepreneurs, and business owners in that space would really love to get into the nuts and bolts of what conjunction leadership is and how you're generating revenue today. I know that you mentioned the one-on-one coaching, the groups, and the one-to-many. So, what exactly is the core offer? Is that really what you're bringing to the table there, and how's it structured for your clients?
Sure. Let's just start at the very apex of the pyramid, that one-on-one elite level, right? Because I journey with people who are at the very top of their pyramid as well and still reaching for more. They usually have a large footprint as a founder or as a entrepreneur themselves, potentially even as a large CEO in a major organization. Those are the types of clients I work with. They get concierge service. So the major revenue model is a retainer. They pay me, they achieve the value that they choose to achieve. So that means if they schedule once a month or if they schedule once a week, and they get a link to my calendar. And what we do is we journey through this together, but in a more personalized way. So we tend to follow the disrupt, bridge, and grow model, but it's not always linear. There are oftentimes, as we reach new pinnacles or new plateaus in our leadership, we have to unlearn some things before we can go ahead and grow into the next. So we go back into disruption, we bridge to the future, and then we start growing towards it again until they get to the point when they say, but yet there's more, and we continue to go back and forth. In the second level in the coaching programs that I have, we generally journey about 16 weeks through that, 8 sessions. So we spread them out enough that they have enough place and time to absorb and reflect and to experience. But what they're getting in that is also the value of camaraderie and collegiality. They recognize that I am not alone in this journey. These are probably leaders who are maybe not at the top of their pyramid yet, but they see themselves being there. They just haven't achieved that level of success or victory yet in their career. So we're helping them be next generation ready, if you will. And in that, they're understanding their backgrounds, they're understanding where they came from, they're understanding what makes them yes and what makes them no, so that when they make those decisions, it's either a hell yes or a hell no for them. And they do that in a space where they can look to their right and their left and go, there are other people who want what I want, and I'm not unique and weird. Because all too often, those that are high achievers tend to be on one side of the bell curve, and they're like, maybe I'm not like everybody else. We put them together, they see that they're not, they spiral each other on to achieve greater things, and they recognize once I get comfortable with who I am, I can achieve anything that I want. In those kind of free levels, then what we're doing is we're just exploring the principles and the models that are written in the book. These are for people who are probably still lurking in the shadows a little bit. They know they want more for their life, but they're not yet willing to say they're taking it to the yes level. They're learning some of these principles, they're learning some of these models, they're having a chance to reflect on it in their life. And I'm giving them some pretty deep probing questions that starts that process of listening to that nagging voice inside that says, maybe I should be listening to this because the warning bells are going off. There's things in my life that I want more of. There's things in my life that I want yes of, and I'm stuck in a rut. So that's really the principal model of coaching. Outside of that, once a leader gets their head on straight, no matter where they choose to involve, they generally start leading in a way that other people are like, I want what they have. And so my principle is culture is a belief that it's people like us doing things like this. And when the leader goes first, other people say, I want to do that. So then we bring the frameworks and the models and some of the classroom type of work to the team. And we do leadership development programming and team coaching.
Amazing. With that being said, it's clear as day the system is fully, flushed out, and you really have it churning on all cylinders here. So, how does the acquisition side of things look for you as far as what's working best, whether that be ads or referrals, organic, social media? What's working best for you with bringing on new clients consistently?
Yeah, I know it's probably one of the hardest things to achieve, but it's also one of the best things to achieve is when you make a difference in someone else's life, we want to pay it forward. So my largest source of business tends to still be the referral. It keeps me on my toes every day. It makes me want to be a better leader myself and serve my clients in a better way because once that person, whoever it is on the other side of the camera or the other side of the table, once they achieve whatever personal victory they set in their life and their career, they're leading in such a way that other people come behind them and then they pass the name on. I do a fair bit of reaching out to, much like you and I have found each other on LinkedIn. I find that LinkedIn has changed over the years and people want to propose marriage to you before they even want to date. And I don't like that. So I tend to use LinkedIn much more as a way to continue to broaden out the things that I don't know. And I don't necessarily use it for prospecting. What I use it for is looking at people who have experiences that I yet don't have or that I don't understand. And I just remain insatiably curious about their background and what they've learned. And then I try to share those key learnings along with my what I do in my writings or my journals and my communications with other people. I share their examples along with many of my other clients. And we can just build a tribe of people who are in this world for the first time, learning to live life for the very first time together. But
Love it.
that has evolved into there are people who come through that journey and request to do work together, but that's not the primary intention of me getting active on LinkedIn. It's mostly to develop relationships. So
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. So as of right now, really just word of mouth is working best for you and it's really bringing in some solid numbers. So when it does come to the sales process, Jim, is this you running the show from start to finish? Do you have a sales team or a team working with you, or is it just the Jim show?
it started out as the gym show and that turned into a shit show pretty quickly. Um,
Yeah.
I have big ideas and lots of aspirations, and I don't like to run systems and processes very well. So it
Right.
turned into spreadsheets and tools and partial apps that I was using, and my tech stack got pretty complicated. So
Yeah.
I did bring in a person that she helps me with most of my operational work, and she has streamlined my systems and my tools. She streamlined our scaling efforts and our reaching out efforts. She streamed out some of the way that we do our sales outreach, some of our marketing and communications work, and then I have a couple people who also help in what I would call media, one way or the other. They help
Yeah.
push things out there. They help get speaking arrangements arranged. They also help me probably sound more consistent than I would be otherwise on my own when my brain is firing in 27 different directions.
Yep.
They help align those messages in places that make sense for the reader.
Beautiful. Beautiful. On that same front there, with having her with you and what you're able to do on the fulfillment side, is there a specific bottleneck that you can point to growth right now, whether that be qualified lead generation or converting those leads into clients or delivering with your current capacity on the fulfillment side? Is there something there that you can point to?
Yeah, I could always do better in what I would call value delivery in the piece. Like I'm doing well one-on-one when the client is in front of me and we're working to make sure value is established. But there are all those people that I'm making relationships with every day that are saying, hey, I need help with, or I have a position that's available. I just don't know someone. So I tuck those things in the back of my brain. And then as someone comes across my path, I try to point them in that direction. But I could always do much, much better at that because there's just only so much space in my brain. So using CRMs and using tools and things like that kind of record that for me is helpful, but I don't always remember in the moment, like, oh, here's a way that I could reach back out to Jay. And he told me once that he had
Right.
help with this. So it's once I've developed the relationship and they're a warm lead or they're a warm acquaintance, even just to continue to go back and provide value with the massive network that I have. I think that would be a big one. There's always some smaller things that we could be doing too, and just putting it together in downloadables or ebooks or things like that are just free and easy for people to access. That seems like the content creation piece of it is a never ending job. There's always more content to create.
Absolutely. For me, I would definitely love to hear a bit more of where your mind is on the next 6 to 12 months as far as your vision goes, your top priorities for growing conjunction leadership. What are you laser focused on, whether that be a specific revenue target or how you plan on scaling at this level and where you really want to take it? What does the next year look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jay. Every good entrepreneur has visions of what they want with their business to grow to. And
Mhm.
candidly, when I started it, it was let's replace my corporate income and I'll feel like I'm happy. That will provide me the lifestyle at least that I feel like I can. And if I work less hours, wonderful. So we achieved that pretty quickly in our journey. Now it's about really now that the lifestyle is there, what I didn't do when I started this business was say I wanted to get back into another corporate experience where I'm working 90 hours a week and always tired and behind the gun doing somebody else's work. So now it's about stepping forward and saying, yes, what is it that we can repay to society that society doesn't currently have and what's not being met? And so for me, the revenue is really the outcome of the process. It's a metric of how many people have invested into me and have trusted me in their journey. I've also had to wrestle with the question, do I love to do the work or do I love to build the business? And the answer with the name conjunction is yes, and I love to do both of those things. So we're in the process of deputizing and hiring a few people that would be coaching potential for us to run some of these cohort experiences, and we can scale that model pretty quickly. The groups are filling faster than I had expected them to, and it's outpacing the ability that I have to grow into that or to deliver that. I still love working with my elite level clients, so we're going to continue to do that. But it's pretty easy that we'll double revenue here in the next 12 to 18 months, I would say, if things continue where they're at.
So with that being said, if you had a genie, snap your fingers and you had unlimited resources available to you right now, what are you implementing immediately into conjunction?
Oh, that's a great question. I would automate. I would use as much automation as I possibly can to make databases talk to one another and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's tools out there that will do this, and getting them from a lead capture system into a CRM and an ongoing relationship with some communications that are still personalized, but maybe even not just everybody gets the same email every all 3 weeks, but I can tailor that to the audience that's coming in. I would definitely add a couple more headcount in terms of resources, people who are able to, who have a coaching mindset, who may not always have to be a coach, but can be developing relationships with people prior to these book clubs, as an example, knowing how to ask questions and help people be uncomfortable with the things that they're currently not comfortable with and not feeling like they have to solve it right away. That's a big one. I would add a few more people who would be in the writing or the content generation space as well, where they know my philosophy, they know what we're trying to get done here, and they can bring themselves uniquely to that to write materials that would help people advance in that. And I think pretty quickly, one thing that I've held back on, but I think there's just a need for some self-learning in this as well, curriculum or whatever it might be, that someone might try to take a guided coaching experience alone with some reflective tools and journals and books or whatever it might be and get part of the way there, and then add the cream on the crop with maybe some personal interaction from one-on-ones.
Absolutely. Incredible. Incredible. As far as your vision for where the leadership coaching industry is evolving in the coming years, how do you really see that? What are you picturing? And what are you really doing to position conjunction leadership ahead of that evolution?
Yeah, it's a good one. AI has changed the game for a lot of people, and some people
Yeah.
think they can go to their chat GPT and they'll get coaching that way. I'm not saying they can't get good ideas, and certainly those GPTs help us in many ways. But I also think that many people have a belief that, like I told you, coaching, I don't need coaching unless I'm in a jam. And I will honestly tell you that every transformational journey I've been a part of, my own and any client I've ever worked with, has generally started because there's been some degree of pain in the journey ahead of that, right? So I love it when people are like, I don't need it until I get into a jam. And then when they do, then we're all in. I don't really like it when people get into it and someone says, I need coaching for someone else. Like what they're really doing is outsourcing their job to me and saying, I want you to give them the difficult feedback, or I want you to help them see that there's more inside of them. So what I try to do is the things that the robots can't do, right? And as much as we want to believe that robots are great, there's still a degree of empathy for this messed up life that we live and the experiences that we create. And so I think as much as anything, understanding, have a master's in physiology and behavior. So I really love to geek out where the intersection of belief and behavior comes into action. And when people can understand how their physiology influences their thought life, and when their thought life influences their actions, what we can actually do is start going back and helping the whole person in the physiological sense to say, how do we add empathy to that situation when we're all just human to begin with? And I think that's the place where I want to out innovate, outpace, out whatever is, the more we learn about science, the more it reveals about us sometimes too. And we can't just use that as an excuse, but we have to use it as a place of empowerment to say, I can control my physiology and my belief, but it's not entirely because I'm strong enough. It's because I have the capacity to be a human being.
Absolutely amazing. I love that. I'm definitely really aligned with what you're saying in that belief system there. So incredible for you to share that. And hopefully our listeners are taking some notes on that side of things there. So let's get into a lightning round. Just before we wrap up, would love to hear a couple things from your side. And first being as far as a tool or a resource goes, Jim, whether that be a leadership strategy from your past or a coaching technique that you're utilizing or a tool like an AI tool, but what's just been a game changer for conjunction leadership this far?
A game changer. I'd say it's my Audible account.
Mm,
Honestly, it's the quickest and easiest way for me to get some exposure to those things that I don't understand yet, and I'm not always comfortable with. So if you look at my book list or my podcast list, in some cases, people would be very confused as what I'm intrigued by because I'm always intrigued by things I don't yet understand. So
that's a beautiful thing. Always learning, expanding on the brain.
yeah.
I love it. I love
Um,
it.
and as I do that, what happens for me too, I start connecting random thoughts like part A with part B, and I get off into dreamer's world. And that's honestly where my new services and innovation come from.
Incredible. I would love to see a mind map of how your brain operates.
No, you don't. No, you
It
don't.
would be a web. I
Yeah.
love it. Jim, it's been incredible so far. Again, I truly appreciate all the insights. It's clear as day how knowledgeable, intelligent, and just passionate you are about what you're doing. And I can feel that through the conversations. Just thank you again. And before we wrap up, I just have one last question for you. And this one is be for our listeners. So, what kind of advice can you offer to our listeners right now? So, again, other founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, or people that are listening with aspirations to get into the space of owning a business or running a coaching business or consultancy, what can you offer them before we wrap up?
Absolutely. I'll combine a couple of things here, right? The title of my new book is called The Adventure Within. And the reason that I titled it that is because so many of us seek adventure outside. We seek adventure in the things that we do. We seek adventure in the conquest that we have. And so a lot of entrepreneurs have probably gotten into the world of entrepreneurship because it's an adventure for them to say, I'm earning my autonomy or my freedom, or I'm putting myself in my driver's seat of my income. And all of those are great reasons to start. As an entrepreneur myself and journeying with several other founders and executives in the journey, what I have seen time and time again is your business is not going to outgrow yourself. And no matter how much you think you've got the plan of your business there, it is always going to reveal more about yourself than it's revealing about anything else. So if you're not experiencing breakthrough that you want, then it's probably because you're not growing as quickly as the environment around you, or you're not adapting and changing. If you're not feeling the freedom that you set out to have when you started this thing, it's because you brought your old reactive patterns from wherever you were into this experience, and you're still reacting against some definition of success that you haven't orchestrated in your own head. And so, my advice to anyone is the leader always has to go first, and you have to take the adventure within. You have to look for what's going on inside of you and understand that better than anything, and always catalyze what is coming next for me so that I can be manifesting what it comes next for my business. And if you're not doing that, then your business isn't ever going to grow faster than you're growing. And if it does, you're in deep doo doo because you're not going to be able to handle it.
I love it. I love it. And listeners, take notes on that one as well. Please. With that, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Jim, just want to thank you again. A remarkable journey so far and sharing your insights with us today. I couldn't thank you enough. And I am going to continue to follow along on your successes and see how far you can take it. And to our listeners, if you did enjoy this episode, which I know so many of you have, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class marketing systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next one.